All right, everyone, welcome to another Martial Moment. And I know you've probably been waiting for this podcast for a while because I know I have taken a long time to finally talk about karate. And I know that many people, when you hear the words martial arts, you automatically think of karate thanks to the 80s and those movies. So we're finally doing it. We're finally having a karate podcast on here. So hoping to have more podcasts. I know I've been slacking off a little bit, not posting a lot of podcasts, but we're getting back into it. So today I have my friend Dylan, who trained in karate. I don't believe he still trains.
Not right now, not since I was in college, did it more in high school, but I might get back into it still, getting into the swing with a new job and everything right now.
Yeah, so regardless, he trained karate for a good while and really loved it, and so I wanted to bring somebody on who knew more about karate, because I did train Kyokushin karate for a year or so, but I wouldn't say I have the experience to really talk about it, so brought someone else in who knows a lot more than me, so hopefully he'll be able to give you some answers if you are looking into doing karate, or if you've never really thought about doing karate, but now maybe you'll have some reasons to go do it. So with that, let's get started. For the listeners who don't really know what karate is, a lot of karate is kind of a umbrella term. I guess there are a lot of different styles of karate, and I'm hoping to have more podcasts of lots of different styles of karate, but most people don't train 1,000 different martial arts styles in their life, so this will come with progress. So what style of karate did you do?
The type of karate that I did was called American Freestyle Karate. It's this place called Dragon Dojo in Pueblo. So it wasn't like your traditional Okinawan Kempo or anything like that. It's had a bit of a modern take, taking some techniques from other non-Japanese martial arts and from styles like MMA. So, and a lot of the students were young, so definitely a lot of focus was kind of being on younger and kind of hip, I guess you could say.
Okay, so kind of like modern karate, kind of more MMA of karate, would you say?
A little bit. Like I said, some of the stuff was MMA, but it was pretty free-flowing.
Okay, so how long did you train?
The entire time that I was in high school, from when I was a freshman and when I was a senior, was when I earned my black belt.
Okay, and so that leads into the next question. So what is your experience level?
Right before my senior year, right before I graduated high school, I earned my first degree black belt first year. Like with a lot of our styles, the black belts go by every year. You're able to go for another one. So I got right to the black belt right when I stopped.
All right, and you didn't go ahead for any other degrees? You stopped at the first degree?
No, because I moved away for college, so I tried to continue karate up there, but I couldn't find any place that was close enough to campus to continue with.
Yeah, that's always a difficult one, transportation, being in college.
Yeah, definitely.
All right, so I know a lot of people have seen karate in movies. I'm sure the majority of people have seen The Karate Kid and kind of base their impression of karate on that. So how would you describe karate to someone who's never heard about it before?
Well, if you have a spectrum of Japanese martial arts, karate would probably be closest to the equivalent of boxing. Like, that's an oversimplification that people have used to describe martial arts, but karate is primarily a striking-focused art. Punches, kicks, chops, elbow strikes. So it's upright, quick, and straightforward. A lot of martial arts are circular and focus more on grappling or throwing, but karate is definitely a fist against fist type art.
All right. So what makes karate unique from other martial arts systems?
Well, like I said, just describing it right now, specifically, it's different from other Japanese martial arts because of the fact that other Japanese martial arts were based around how samurai would fight in armor, so they're based around weapons, or they're based around throws or grapples to defeat someone who had a weapon or had armor. And karate, especially from the fact that karate was not originally Japanese but came from the Okinawan people and was often used in conflict with the samurai, so even a lot of people don't know that distinction, though you have at least heard the distinction touched on. If you've watched The Karate Kid, Mr. Miyagi is very careful to point out that he's from Okinawa and doesn't consider himself Japanese. A lot of people don't even know that there are different ethnic groups who exist in Japan. So yeah, karate definitely has a different history, and it's a much different art from the others that arise in the neighboring islands.
All right. And we already touched upon your distinct style of karate and what makes it different from other types of karate. Is there anything else you wanted to add to that?
Well, I guess one thing that it focuses on fun. Like, people would like to fight. Like, whenever we had weapons training, we would fight with, like, those pool noodles, kind of. Like, we would use it for, like, eskrima technique, but we'd also focus on fun like that. But there would also be, like, practical self-defense lessons, like how to use different everyday objects as self-defense weapons or self-defense scenarios. So even though that wasn't the main focus on it, that wasn't the main theme, that was also part of the whole modern take, is kind of the practicality. How could you actually use this if someone attacked you in real life? So that was a good focus to have.
That's interesting. I haven't heard of a school that does that, at least not around here.
Oh, well, yeah. Like I said, during dojo, we would even like practice, okay, use this empty water bottle kind of like as a makeshift jabbing weapon, or use a jump rope as something that can tie up someone's arm if they're going to do a knife. We'd get creative. It was pretty much if someone could come with an idea of something to try out, people would give it a shot.
All right. So what is the story of how you started karate?
Well, through most of the time I was a teenager, I was not very confident in myself, but especially when I was in middle school, I wasn't very athletic and didn't have a lot of friends, got bullied a lot, so my story kind of sounds like the classic 80s inspirational story anyway, which is probably why when my dad showed me The Karate Kid, it spoke to me. Yeah, I got bullied a lot in middle school. At one point I got sick of it, and I got in my head that if I could just beat up the bullies, that would somehow fix everything, give me some more self-esteem. So I actually tried fighting back against the bullies. Didn't end very well because, the one who gets bullied, if they fight back, they're the ones who get in trouble. That's a lesson to learn, kids. But part of trying to help me get through that was my dad showing me The Karate Kid, and he had actually taught me Aikido, a different martial art that's a lot softer than karate.
And it is very circular, like you mentioned.
Yes, karate and Aikido are almost complete opposites, and that kind of really sums up how we got on this path. Dad always thought that it would help me to learn Aikido, but the thing is, my dad was a football player growing up. He was very confident, very fit in, very popular, and very masculine. So karate, he kind of needed Aikido to mellow him out. Yeah. He kind of needed his edges softened. But I didn't have a lot of confidence. I didn't believe in myself very much. Mm-hmm. So I needed to find something that helped me feel stronger. Because it's, I think one quote from those movies could be like, Daniel-san, when he's talking to Mr. Miyagi, is all, you train in karate so that you can fight. And Miyagi's like, is that what you think? But Daniel-san realizes, actually, no. You train so you don't have to fight. And that was kind of it. When I started learning karate, part of why I tried to fight those bullies was to prove that I actually could fight them. But then when I learned karate and I actually did for sure know that I could fight and defend myself, I didn't really have an urge to outwardly prove myself to jerks, like thinking that, okay, I'll punch this jerk in the face, that'll prove that I'm manly, and then they'll leave me alone. It's like karate, it's like, I know that I'm strong, I know that I can do these cool things, so I care a lot less about what some random jerk thinks. So ironically, I've never fought anyone since I actually learned how to fight. I kind of ended up caring a lot less what bullies thought, and I don't know, just kind of worked out like that.
Yeah, it's crazy. I feel like the more someone trains a martial art, the less they want to fight. Mm-hmm. Like, you see a lot of people itching to get into street fights and things that have never trained before, but most of the people who've trained in martial arts really don't want to get into street fights. Like, they don't want to engage in encounters like that. Mm-hmm. And I think that kind of goes to show a good reason to start martial arts, so that you don't end up in encounters like that and can find ways to solve it without engaging in violent ways.
I think you start thinking of fighting as something totally different when learning how to protect yourself is like a hobby and something that you do to thinking about self-improvement and, becoming more athletic, healthier, instead of thinking of fighting as something that as something that proves something or something that is meant to solve problems. You think about it as part of this whole bigger system of self-improvement, and then you don't want to do it for the sake of hurting someone else. You want to do it to build yourself up.
That's really deep. I love it.
Thank you, Tori.
Super philosophical. So I'm sure when you started, obviously there was a point where you had your first ever class. And then I'm assuming after that first class, you had to make a decision to come back. So what kind of convinced you to keep coming after trying it for the first time?
Well, I don't know. I guess it was just, I think the first class I ever did focused on kicking, and I don't know, kicks were cool. Just the fact that I was able to do something that looked kind of hard, because like my dad never, Aikido has no kicks whatsoever, basically. Yeah. It's a totally different kind of art, and my dad even kind of looked down on kicks. So like the fact that I was learning how to kick and it was kind of seemed like a movie thing, it was just kind of fun and exciting. And my sensei was really nice and encouraging. Like, I got the feeling from him right away that he was the good teacher that I could keep going to, because he focused on having fun, but he had that good balance. He was good at instructing, good at correcting, but also still having that fun, supportive atmosphere. So I knew that there was nothing in that class that changed the fact that I still wanted to learn karate, and my sensei was probably the main factor in why that class in particular was the good one.
Oh yeah, and a good instructor makes a huge difference in your training, because you could be doing the same art but have different instructors, and one person could quit and the other one might not, just because the environment is better. Yeah,
that can come from being taught almost anything.
Yeah. So what kind of rank system did you use at your school in particular? I know lots of different karate styles have different belt systems, but for yours in particular, what did it look like?
And I've got a picture on my phone here because I knew I wouldn't remember, that has all the various belts. So basically the way it works is you got your standard white belt at the beginning, your black belt at the most advanced level, and in between, for the beginners levels, you have the lighter shades, bright yellow through orange. Then you have the middle stages, purple, blue, and green. Then you have the brown belts up until black belt. For each of the belts, there are these stripes taped, because in my class, each week focused on something different. Kicking, katas, weapons, or let's see, what was the other one? Kicking, katas, weapons, or I think self-defense. Don't quote me on that. I don't remember that for sure. So each week, there'd be like a Friday test on each specific type of skill. If you did proficiently, you'd get one of the pieces of tape on your current belt. Once you had all 4 pieces of tape, you could move up to the next belt. I think for white belt, it takes about a month to move past that. Then it takes like 2 months for the lighter belts, and then 3 months for the intermediates, and then even longer for the brown belts. So it's the same basic structure for the entire time you're there. It just keeps getting more advanced the further up you go. But it's all based on that type of proficiency, about what every class focuses on each week.
And is there a different system for kids, or do kids do the same system as the adults?
Kids do the same system. Like, there is an adult class, so adults have like harder things that they do and engage in more strenuous stuff. But yeah, the colors and the time scheme, pretty much the same thing for kids and adults.
All right. So what were your goals when you started?
Well, I guess my goals were to just find some way to feel better about myself, and also to get in shape. When I was in middle school, I definitely wasn't very healthy, but I was afraid of trying to be athletic and be competitive, because sports were always a bad experience for me growing up, and I'd always been pretty overweight. So this seemed like a less threatening way, a way I could be more excited about trying to get healthier, and again, trying to feel better about myself, trying to feel more confident, more strong. And let's see, was there a second part to your question? Sorry.
Nope, just goals when you started.
Yeah, those were my goals when I started.
All right, so then this, I guess, is kind of a part 2 to that question. So as you progressed in your training, did your goals change at all, or your expectations of what you're going to get change?
Yeah, I think I became more competitive as I went on, because I was so shy that the idea of competing against other people was frightening to me. The idea of just kind of being in my own little world was better at first. But as I went along and started being more sure of myself, more sure that I could learn the complicated things, I started being more willing to spar, more willing to try to compare my efforts against other people. But again, not in a tear down way, more as a use each other, boost ourselves up type thing. So I tried to, try to push myself instead of just doing enough to get the belt. I try to push myself to see just how good I can do, how high can I get that kick, how many kicks can I perform, how good of a kata can I do, what type of weapon can I learn, that kind of stuff.
All right, so that's perfect. Let's segue into our competition talk. So, all in all, did you consider yourself more competitive or more of a hobbyist?
I was definitely more a hobbyist, even though I did mention that getting more competitive thing. I never actually competed in a real tournament. I did sparring within the class, and I got more competitive with my other students. But yeah, I was definitely more of a casual person doing it as a hobby.
All right, so even though you haven't competed yourself, do you know the format for competitions? What was it like? Did you ever watch any competitions?
Actually, no. I do not know the answer to this.
All right. So what's your favorite part about training karate?
I'm pretty sure it's the feeling you get when there's something that you couldn't do, a kick that you couldn't perform, a kata that you couldn't just get right, that becomes... I love that feeling when you have something like that, and then the feeling when you first finally do it right, and then I really get addicted to the feeling when something like that becomes easy for you. And after all the endless repetition and training, something that was impossible suddenly becomes easy. Or not suddenly, but it feels sudden because you never thought you'd reach that point.
Oh, yeah. Do you ever look back on how you were when you first started and just really become really shocked about where you ended up?
Oh, yeah, definitely. Completely different person from when I first started, and yeah, the type of things I could do, the types of techniques I was learning, and my sparring ability. Like, I never thought that I'd be able to at least hold my own against the sensei's son. Like, no one can hold their own against the sensei, but his son is a fellow instructor, and towards the end I was actually able to hold my own against him, and I never would have thought that possible. Couldn't beat him, but holding my own against him is still pretty impressive.
Oh yeah. So kind of going along with that, so of course with any new thing that you try, you go in for the first time and you probably get humbled really quickly, not really knowing what's going on, being really nervous. And I'm guessing it takes a good while to kind of transition from that. So how long approximately would you say it takes for someone to move past that beginner stage?
Well, probably a few months, mainly because the beginner stage is built into the curriculum, those yellow belts. Even if you feel like you're ready for more, you're still have to be willing to sit in that beginner place until you've worked your way up and earned the belts the right way, which kind of stops you from trying to go too fast or negating the basics. So yeah, maybe at least 3 months or so, maybe a little bit longer, but I'd say at least 3 months. All
right, and then how long do you think it would take to become proficient?
Well, it depends on what we mean by proficient here.
Let's break it down, I guess. So for a hobbyist, let's say they don't want to compete in anything at the high level. Mm-hmm. How long do you think it would take for them to just be really comfortable with the system and be able to hold their own against kind of the average hobbyist?
I think maybe about 6 months would be where you at least reach that point of feeling like that, starting to feel more confident and where you're used to things. I'd say if you want to be really sure of your position, probably about a year. All
right. So what is your least favorite part about training karate?
Well, I might as well be honest. When it comes to sparring, I don't like getting hit. I wish there was a way to somehow learn to be a good fighter without ever getting hit. Except you don't really learn to block the real hits or learn to keep up with the speed if you don't get hit. But that's honestly my least favorite part.
Yeah, I mean, it's hard to do a martial art and not get hit.
And honestly, I don't really like hitting other people. Like, I don't like hitting other people hard enough to hurt them. For me, a part of it, I was actually kind of bad at sparring at first because I kept being really, like, it was like my arm would freeze when I was about to hit someone. Because, you know, I'm a pretty big guy, so I could really hurt someone. A lot of the people that was fighting were smaller than me, but they were able to hit really hard. So that's, so for one thing, it'd be really arrogant of me to assume that someone isn't dangerous because of that.
Yeah.
But also, the interesting thing was I actually learned to overcome that because by learning to control myself, to figure out just the right amount of strength to hit with, where a strike would leave an impression and count but not be like a knockout punch. In my early days, I would either have like these little punches or I would somehow end up getting in a knockout punch. So learning balance of that was an important way to counteract that.
Oh yeah, and I'm sure that comes with a lot of experience too, learning how to do a technique correctly but still having control and not hurting anybody with it. Yeah,
definitely.
Did you I don't know how this is in karate a whole lot, but when you're sparring in class, do the beginners tend to spaz out and go too hard, or is it kind of the opposite, or what's kind of the impression of white belt sparring?
It's definitely based on someone's personality. I feel like what I saw more of was people probably being more like me, like, you know, they would just little punches like this, being kind of hesitant to get into a place where they could get hit and only kind of hitting people a little bit. I never saw anyone spaz out that much, but I'm sure that if there were there'd be people who'd be more prone to do that by their personalities.
Yeah. So what's the funniest or weirdest experience that ever happened to you or a teammate while doing karate?
Funniest or weirdest experience?
Yeah, any funny stories are welcome.
Okay. I guess when fighting the sensei's son, he is he's pretty young, and he is like ridiculously athletic and agile. So, and usually most of the people who spar him can't match him at all. So he likes to act a little cocky, like he'll do these little moves or he'll do incredibly complicated kicks that he knows he can land anyway because he's so fast. So then I guess like the funniest thing that ever happened would probably be when he was like doing like a cocky little dance one time after landing a hit. Just one time, I think I was fighting him. Wait, am I mixing this up? No, I was fighting him. One time I did a little cocky little dance. The first time I got a real hit on him was because he stopped to do a cocky little dance, like bobbing his head, and then he left himself open, hit a really good hit, and everyone just thought that was funny. So, because, you know, I'm probably not telling this the funniest way, but yeah.
No, that works. I definitely have had some of those experiences.
Yeah, definitely. Because, you know, he is good enough that he was able to think of himself as untouchable, but just the fact that he had that smug look on his face and he was all, oh, yeah, I'm so awesome, and that was when he gets hit, everyone was just like, oh, that was pretty funny.
Yeah. So what is the hardest part about karate? So I know we said your least favorite part, but this is the hardest part, but doesn't necessarily have to be your least favorite.
I think that probably ties into it a little bit. For me, it was really getting used to what it's like to actually fight someone because I had never done that before. But it's because I'd always be so afraid to be like, oh, an attack can come at me from any angle. I have no way to stop getting hit. And just learning to put yourself into that mind frame of staying in a situation, in a place where you can get hit, it's mentally difficult. And that's part of where you build up that mental fortitude, and where it's part of the whole endless repetition, something that was once impossible becomes natural eventually type thing. Because for me, it was just learning to stay in that position and then learning, oh wait, but I know what it looks like when someone's going to punch or what someone's going to kick, so I can actually learn to anticipate it. But it is definitely, that was the hardest thing mentally to learn how to change. Mm-hmm. And, you know, that along with hitting other people. But I'd say that was the most, this part was a little more difficult.
All right. We already talked about some of this because I went out of order. So what is the typical financial investment, including equipment, for someone who wants to try karate but isn't sure?
Well, let's see. Not everyone has to And my school, people didn't have to spar until they reached like at least intermediate, maybe brown belt. That gear probably cost you another 100, 200. I remember the gi costing around 70, something like that. The belt probably another 10 or 20. And this is off memory, so it could have gone up. I could be inaccurate, but I'd say a few $100s, and then every month it was probably around $70 for school tuition.
All right.
Yep, but again, do not quote me on that. That's like 5-year-old information.
Yeah, and every school is different, but that sounds to be pretty typical on a lot of schools. Like roughly $100 a month for tuition, give or take a few, and then karate gis, about 70. I think for a really nice one. I think there's some cheaper gis you can get for less, but those don't last very long. And
they feel like cardboard and they're really itchy, so that kind of gets in the way of doing your best.
Yeah. And then did you, because you had mentioned the stripes on the belt, did you have a formal belt test? Was that something that you guys did, or were you just given the belts?
No, we had a formal test. We would do those stripes as like the lead up to the belt test because, like I said, each week was divided by the type of thing they were teaching. You got a stripe for each of those, but then you get a test testing on you on all the things, the katas, the kicks, the other techniques, the weapons. So doing it all together, and then that's how you get your belt. And instead of being a test just for you, it'd be like there'd be a belt test for anyone who was eligible like every month or so.
Okay. Yeah, and I'm guessing you could go and watch the belt test and see what it's about.
Yep.
I think every school that has a belt test will usually let visitors watch and cheer on the people testing. Mm-hmm. So that's another thing you can do too if you're wanting to join a school and don't know much about it, is just go attend a belt test and see what kind of things they're learning, what kind of things they're showing off at their test, what it takes to get each belt. Because I know you see a lot of crazy techniques and things, but that's not what you learn right away. That's what you learn down the line. Mm-hmm. So you'd probably look at a white belt test and be like, oh, okay, that's not quite as bad. I think I can do this. So are there any other martial arts that you'd want to train in addition to karate?
Yeah. I have a little bit of an interest in doing Aikido again, just because it's very useful for self-defense against people who are stronger than you, because it's more about using someone's weight against you, and something that you can do after you get older and can't like kick the same way. But as for right now, I'm also pretty interested in learning a bit more about Chinese martial arts, and because I learned a lot about Chinese history when I was in college. And I'll be honest, another movie prompted that interest. If any of you have heard about the Ip Man films.
I was going to say, it's got to be Ip Man.
Yep, exactly. They're on Netflix. If you haven't seen them, go ahead, check them out. Donnie Yen, he was in Star Wars Rogue One playing the blind force user. Wing Chun is the style that Ip Man uses in those movies. Obviously, the movies are pretty good at sensationalizing it. That's not what you'll be able to do in real life. But still got me interested in learning about Wing Chun, the real Ip Man, and it seems like a really awesome style. It's got some similarity to karate with the strikes and everything, but it is at the same time it's also a bit more fluid and circular, so it's kind of an interesting place on that spectrum I was talking about. So yeah, I wouldn't mind checking out a Wing Chun Academy if there are any around.
Yeah. What advice would you give to somebody who wants to try karate for the first time?
Probably be patient, because when you're first starting, it'll be just like a couple basic stances, a couple basic kicks. And you might be wondering, like a lot of martial arts students do, when can I do the stuff the guys in the movies do? A lot of that is editing, so don't expect to be able to do a lot of that. But B, you will be able to do amazing things, and you will be able to feel so much more confident, but you have to give it time. It's a slow foundation, and cliche, but journey of 1,000 miles begins with a single step, all that kind of good stuff. You have to give time to learn the basics. And you have to be willing to learn. You can't go in there thinking that you know everything. Like, teach me this jumping flying kick. You have to be open and ready. Like that old proverb about filling a cup. You can't fill a cup that's already full. You have to empty your cup, be willing to learn, be open to your teachings and to the new experiences.
Once again, getting very philosophical. I love it. If you could go back in time to when you first started, is there anything that you would do differently?
I probably tell myself to go sign up for the adult class first. I was 14, so I was still like on the younger end of the spectrum, but I ended up starting with the young kids first and the basics because I thought that was required. But it turns out the adult class, it doesn't matter how old you are, but I just didn't even bother finding that out. So yeah, start in the adult class. There was no reason for you to go ahead with the kids for the first few months.
All right. And what would you tell someone who is unsure if they want to try karate?
Let's see. I would tell them that when it comes to martial arts, it's important to know what you're trying to get out of it. Are you learning to beat people up? Are you trying to learn what you saw in a movie? Or are you trying to better yourself? Are you trying to learn something? And what are you trying to learn? Because, like I said, for my dad, he needed Aikido to mellow him out, give him more balance in a calming capacity, and teach him that self-defense wasn't all about power, and it wasn't about offense. So for him, that's what provided balance. For me, I wasn't confident. I didn't believe in myself very much. So learning Aikido was good, but it wasn't giving me what I was missing. Karate gave me balance by giving me what I was missing, the strength, the power. So with any martial art, I'm going to get philosophical on you again. Martial arts do that to me every time. Find what will give you your balance. What do you think could make you feel more whole, more even? Like, just what are you looking? Because the point of martial arts isn't that you're ever going to reach a point where you've learned everything and you're awesome. The point of martial arts is that every day you're continuously improving yourself because you recognize there is no perfection, which means that it's actually something to be really excited about because you don't ever have to stop improving. There's always a better version of yourself. So find what type of art, what type of school, what type of teacher will help you keep learning indefinitely so that you can always have that feeling of feeling better and you never have to really decide on what a set limit is for yourself.
All right. I think I'm going to steal some quotes from you because you have some good ones in here.
Thank you.
Like some inspirational posters. But yeah, really awesome talking to you about karate. I've did not expect to get that much of a history lesson that I got, and that was really cool. So that being said, thank you so much for coming on to Martial Moments. And for my listeners out there, thank you for listening. Please hit the subscribe button and the notification bell, and I will see you in the next one.